Welcome to this explainer. Look, if you're planning to bring a medical device into the Saudi Arabian market, you already know the regulatory landscape can feel, well, like navigating a dense, complicated jungle. But don't worry, because today we're handing you the ultimate roadmap. We're going to master the MDS REQ1 regulations set by the Saudi Food and Drug Authority, the SFDA. We'll break down the entire process for getting your medical device marketing authorization step by step. And crucially, we'll look at how your success depends heavily on accurately classifying your device's risk right from the get-go under Annex 5. So get ready to take some notes. This is your definitive guide to compliance.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here is our game plan. First, laying the groundwork. Second, building the evidence. Third, the GHAD submission. Fourth, special cases. And finally, post-market duties. All right, kicking things off with Section 1, laying the groundwork, prerequisites and classification. Before we even think about the design or function of your specific medical devices, we absolutely have to get your legal footing sorted out in the kingdom. Just to make sure we're all starting on the exact same page today, let's clearly define what we're actually after here. The MDMA, the Medical Devices Marketing Authorization. This is it, the official document issued by the SFDA that legally permits the circulation, distribution, and use of your medical device in the Saudi market. Without this essential piece of paper, your product simply cannot enter the market. And trust me, any attempts to bypass this can result in some serious legal repercussions, including immediate product confiscation. You definitely don't want that.
So how do we actually get started? Well, your very first step depends entirely on where your company is based. If you're a local manufacturer operating right there within the kingdom, your first move is pretty straightforward. You just obtain an establishment license directly from the SFDA. But if you're an overseas manufacturer, the process requires a crucial intermediary. You can't just apply directly on your own. You have to formally appoint an authorized representative, or AR. Now, understanding why the AR holds so much power is absolutely vital. They are a legal entity based in the kingdom, and they don't just push paper around. They act as your official legal proxy. They hold the written authorization to represent you, they're legally responsible for the device in the kingdom, and they act as your direct primary liaison for all SFDA communications. They're your boots on the ground. And this brilliantly illustrates how these initial licenses are really the foundational entry point into the whole life cycle of bringing your device to market. You start with Step 1, licensing. That empowers you to build out Step 2, your quality management system and technical documentation. Compiling all that evidence is exactly what allows you to push through Step 3, the GHAD electronic submission. And finally, once your device is approved and actively being sold, you enter the continuous ongoing loop of Step 4, post-market surveillance. Moving right along to Section 2, building the evidence, documentation, and QMS. Now, this is arguably the most intensive and honestly the most important part of the entire journey. This is where you gather the rock-solid scientific and technical proof that your device is safe, effective, and performs exactly as you claim it does. A critical piece of that required evidence relies heavily on how you run your day-to-day operations. Implementing a quality management system, or QMS, certified specifically to ISO 13485-2016 isn't just some nice recommendation. It's a strict, non-negotiable legal requirement under the MDS REQ9 regulation. The SFDA mandates that your manufacturing processes, design controls, and documentation all meet this international standard. But here's where we need to introduce a real game changer: risk classification under Annex 5. You see, the depth and the absolute rigor of the technical evidence you generate from your QMS is directly determined by your device's risk classification. It scales with the risk. Alongside your QMS, you're going to need to compile what's called the Essential Principles Checklist. This document is a beast. It systematically lists every single safety and performance principle mandated by the SFDA. For each one, you have to explicitly state if the principle is applicable to your specific device. If it is, you list the exact standard you use to prove conformity. If it's not applicable, well, you can't just leave it blank. You have to provide a clear, robust justification explaining exactly why. And this is exactly where your Annex 5 classification impacts the process again. A high-risk Class C or Class D device is going to require vastly more complex clinical data justifications here compared to, say, a simple Class A device. Think of this checklist as the ultimate master index for all your objective evidence. It ties the whole shebang together. All right, on to Section 3, the GHAD submission, navigating the electronic portal. Once your technical evidence and QMS are meticulously organized, we finally transition to the action phase. This is where you, or your authorized representative, log into the SFDA's dedicated electronic GHAD portal to actually submit the application. Now, what's really interesting about this step is a key strategic concept called bundling. If you manufacture multiple devices, you don't necessarily have to submit a separate application for every single product variation. The SFDA actually allows you to group or bundle families of medical devices into a single application. The catch? They have to share the same legal manufacturer, the same intended use, and fall under the exact same risk class. Mastering this concept is absolutely crucial because of how fee payments work. Mandatory application fees are calculated per submission. So by successfully bundling your products, you reduce the number of submissions, thereby slashing your mandatory fee payments significantly. It's a massive time and money saver. However, you've got to be hyper-aware of the strict numerical limits tied to this bundling allowance. You are legally permitted to include a maximum of 5 technical files and up to 50 individual medical devices per bundled application. And these are hard limits. Exceeding them has major operational consequences. Think about it. If you have 51 devices, that 51st device forces an entirely secondary application. That means paying a whole separate round of application fees and managing a completely secondary regulatory timeline. Understanding these limits right off the bat prevents unexpected delays and budget overruns during your GHAD submission.
Let's pivot to Section 4, Special Cases, Simplified Paths and Exemptions.
If you've been feeling the heavy weight of all these comprehensive regulatory requirements, you might actually be able to breathe a sigh of relief here. The SFDA provides highly streamlined documentation requirements for specific, low-risk devices. Tying this back to those Annex 5 risk classes we talked about, this simplified path is primarily reserved for specific Class A, non-sterile, non-measuring devices. So instead of submitting a massive, exhaustive technical file, you might only need to submit 4 key items: your device description and specification, the information provided by the manufacturer, like your labels, the essential principles checklist we just discussed, and your evidence of compliance. That's it, a much lighter lift.
And speaking of exceptions, we have a really exciting carve-out to highlight for novel devices. Innovative, breakthrough medical devices can actually be exempted from some of the heavier documentation requirements found in Annex 3 and Annex 4. The SFDA purposely designed this exception to encourage cutting-edge medical technologies to enter the Saudi market faster. If your product qualifies as truly innovative, this can significantly reduce your initial regulatory burden and get your potentially life-saving technology into the hands of practitioners much, much sooner. It's a real win-win.
Finally, we arrive at Section 5, Post-Market Duties. Maintaining compliance. It is absolutely vital to understand that hitting submit and finally receiving your MDMA approval isn't the finish line. In reality, it's just the starting line for your ongoing market surveillance. You have to actively execute a dedicated post-market surveillance plan. This means continuously evaluating new hazard information from the production phase or from user feedback out there in the field. You've got to amend your risk control measures accordingly and submit periodic safety update reports, or PSURs. And here's exactly why this continuous stream of data is so critical. MDMAs are not permanent. They eventually expire. You will absolutely need this documented surveillance data to successfully process your future MDMA renewals.
So, the crucial point to take away here is this specific number, 10. You need to burn this number into your memory because it represents a dual responsibility. First, even after obtaining your marketing authorization, the SFDA retains the legal right to demand your full updated technical documentation at an audit. And when they ask, you only have exactly 10 days to hand it over. Second, you also have exactly 10 days to officially report any significant changes made to your medical device or your quality management system back to the SFDA. Whether it's a documentation request or reporting a major design change, the clock stops for no one, and you have just 10 days to comply.
Which leaves us with a provocative question to deeply consider as we wrap up today. Is your quality management system truly ready to survive a 10-day SFDA document audit? Seriously, are your technical files neatly organized, perfectly updated with post-market data, and instantly accessible to your authorized representative? Take a hard look at your operational readiness today. Obtaining the MDMA is a massive achievement for sure, but keeping it through renewals and strict surveillance requires constant, unwavering vigilance. Thank you so much for learning with me today on this explainer, and I will see you next time.